What is up, everybody? Welcome. I appreciate everybody joining me. I am Kevin Iole. Um, what a good UFC 308 show that was today. That was a lot of fun, a lot of finishes, a lot of great performances in that one. And as Dana White said at the post-fight press conference, it was very difficult to pick the post-fight bonus winners. So they picked three performances of the night and one fight of the night winner. But what a show it was. But I want to start by talking about Ilia Topuria in the main event. Topuria knocked out Max Holloway in the third round. And I wrote my column, and you can see this on keviniole.com right now. I think the best fighter in the world may be Ilia Topuria. He comes off a win over Alexander Volkanovski, who a lot of people had as pound for pound before his second fight with Islam Makhachev. And then he turns around and he beats Max Holloway in the third round on Saturday. I mean, that has to put him in the running for Fighter of the Year. There's no doubt about that you have to be in the running for Fighter of the Year after a performance like that. But I wrote in my column, I says, who's number one? Is it Islam Makhachev, who's done nothing to lose that spot? Is it John Jones, who kind of is like the grandfathered in, if you want to say Jones is number one? He hasn't fought recently. But if you say Jones is number one, I think it's because he's grandfathered in there from what he's done in the past. But if we're saying pound for pound number one is what you're doing right now, Ilia Topuria is 16-0 with 14 finishes. And then there's Khamzat Chimaev. Look what he did to Robert Whittaker. He is now 14-0 with 12 finishes. And he takes Whittaker down and basically he has 3 minutes and 20 seconds of control time in a 3 minute and 34-second fight. And I don't know if you happen to catch the picture that went out, but it was incredible. This is a picture of Robert Whittaker's jaw there, and that was just scary what happened. Chimaev basically, he was trying to get the rear naked choke in, and he kind of got a face crank, and he got it up here, and he basically snapped his jaw, dislocated his jaw, and his teeth really went went in. So he has some big time problems there. Guys, I see the questions and I'm going to get to those. I just want to make a couple opening comments and then we'll get into the questions. But I appreciate everybody and, pile those questions in and I'll get to as many of them as I can. I want to apologize, by the way. I got a new 4K camera. I hope you noticed that during the week when some of my interviews. Unfortunately, the camera is not working today, so I'm on the webcam, and I'm not sure what was going on with that, but we'll get that figured out going forward. But yeah, I think Chimaev and Topuria both have a very good argument to be number one pound for pound. And even if they're not, they're right up there in the top three or top four. And the UFC, you got to give them a lot of, they have some really elite talent at that very top now. When you look at, who the top guys in the world are, boy, oh boy, that is amazing stuff. Some of the other fights, Magomed Ankalaev, he won. Impressive. He beat Alexander Rakic. I think he deserves to fight against Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight championship. But I was not overly impressed with Ankalaev. He beat a very good guy in Rakic. But I didn't think he really, took many risks. I didn't think he looked spectacular. It was a workmanlike performance, and nothing great. Laurent Murphy beat Dan Ige. I actually thought Ige won that fight. The third round was very close. I thought Ige's grappling, and control that he had there, and he was doing some things with it, might have given him the third round. But no argument with Murphy winning the third round. Shara Magomedov, wow, that double, the spinning back fist both ways, he knocks out Armin Petrosian. That was incredible. That was the first time I have ever seen that. That was pretty incredible. Going down, let's see what else. Ibo Aslan knocks out Rafael Cerqueira. what a fight that was. And I'll talk about that fight more later. I thought that was going to be a really good back and forth fight. And it turned out it was like a blowout. Ebo was incredible on that one. Rafael Dos Anjos looks like he blew out his knee, according to Dana White at the post-fight press conference. Jeff Neal gets the first round knockout there. What else do we have on there? Abus Magomedov looked really good in his win over Bruno Ferreira. Gets that arm triangle submission. Bruno Ferreira had been on a really big roll. Very impressive win for Abus. Chris Barnett, I don't know if you saw my tweet during the fight card. He tore his left hamstring jumping up and down before the fight started. So he was limited, and he ends up getting finished in the first round. And I want to talk about that Carlos Leal Renat Ferragandino fight. I had a bet on Renat. I picked him to win the fight, but he didn't win that fight. I mean, that was just, you could make an argument that he won at 29-28, but 30-27, come on. And I don't even think he won at 20. I think it was 29-28 for Leal, or 30-27 for Leal. But yeah, I just did not get that at all. So before I get to your questions, last thing, I guess I want to talk about what I think is next for maybe, let's say, the top three guys. Ilia Topuria, where do we go with Ilia Topuria? Dana said he looks like he's going to give it to Volkanovski. So, I think we'll see that fight. Does that happen at UFC 312? That's where Volk wants it. It would be big if it was there in Sydney in February. I don't think they're going to do that, though. I think, and Ilya said before the fight that he wouldn't fight him there. He wanted to fight in Spain. The UFC working. They want to bring a fight card to Spain. I think what I saw from Ilya today, though, tells me they'll have plenty of chances to bring a fight card to Spain if they can't get it in February, because this guy's going to be on top, I think, for a long while, because, boy, is he an impressive fighter. My Lord, I was very impressed by him. Then Chimaev. What is next for Chimaev? Boy, that is a tough one, because I'm gonna bring up the rankings here while I talk to you guys in the middleweight division, because Dana is on record is saying that it would be Sean Strickland is going to fight Dricus for the championship next, and they had a close fight at UFC 297. You can't really argue too much there. But if you talk strictly from a Chimaev standpoint, so if they go with Strickland, Dricus versus Strickland, Adesanya is number 2. I don't think he's going to fight Chimaev. Whitaker, number 3, just lost today. Imavov, number 4. Is that a fight you think that Imavov would take? I'm not sure there. Caio Baralho, number 5. There's not a really obvious contender for Chimaev there unless he fights for the championship next. So, I am not sure where they go with him. And then going on to the Magomed Ankalaev fight, as I said, I think he deserves the fight against Alex Pereira. Didn't use his wrestling today. That's not to say that if he fights Alex Pereira, he won't use his wrestling, because I think he will. I think you'll see him use his wrestling and mix it in. But he's not a guy that likes to wrestle a lot in his fights. He has that in his back pocket, but he doesn't use it a ton. I think if he goes against Alex and he fought like he fought today, he's going to get himself knocked out. Now, I think he's going to fight a lot better than he did against Rakic, but, we shall see. So anyways, let's get to your questions and see what we got here. And I'm going to try to get to everybody. I'm going to eliminate the duplicated questions, and we'll go on from there. Topuria to 155. I think eventually, I just think right now, give him, he's made one title defense, right? So do you move him out of the division already? I think let him, rack up a couple. Dana likes to let them rack up 6, 7, 8 title defenses before he wants to see them move up. I'm not that much, but I think, Diego Lopez is there. Volkanovski, is going to get another title shot. I think he deserves that. I think if I were doing it, I would probably give it to Diego first, but I understand why they're going to give it to Volk first. That being said, I just think, slow the roll a little bit on him moving up, right? I mean, Islam is going to be there because Islam's not going to move up to 170 with Bilal as champion. Now, that could change in December. Bilal was fighting Shavkat, UFC 311 in Las Vegas. At that point, maybe things change. But I think that we're going to see, him stay a couple more fights. That's my take, and I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Let's see. Hamzat's strength is brutal. Paradox. I could not agree with you more. I mean, he is so freaking strong. Daniel Cormier alluded to it on the broadcast, and I've talked to DC about this just in when I've seen him around. We talked about how strong Hamzat is, and Hamzat is a guy that, at 170, 185 has the strength really of a smaller heavyweight. I think he could fight at 205 if he wanted. I think he would give up some of his speed if he fought at that. But I think with his wrestling ability, with his strength, he's got the height, he's 6'2". I think he could fight at 205 if he wanted to do that. To me, I think middleweight is great for him right now. And so it'll be interesting. I didn't get to see all of Dana's press conference because I had to come up here and get ready for this live. But he did not, in the time that I saw the press conference, indicate that he would have Hamzat skip over Strickland. And so, as of right now, as it stands right now, Strickland still has the title shot. We'll see what happens if they decide to make a change there. Strickland has not done anything to deserve having it taken away from him, but Hamzat has done something today to deserve having it given to him, if that makes sense to everybody. Let's see. All right. Topuria is unbeatable at 145. He must go up to 155. Makhachev, Sarukian, Oliveira, and in the future, Usman Nurmagomedov and John Silva. Again, like I said, I know you asked the question about him to 155. I just don't think right now is the right time. Now, Don Vito, if I'm in Volk's camp, I advise him not to take that rematch. One of my friends said that right away, and I can understand that. Volk has got those losses stacked up now, right? Those losses to Islam, and if he goes in there and he gets, and then the first loss to Topuria, if he loses again, boy oh boy, he's in a rough spot at that point. What does he do? That might be the end for him. So. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe wait till Topuria goes up to lightweight and they give JA his wish, and then Volk come back in there and go after that title. But that's a tough one. Topuria versus Diego Lopez. I think that's the fight to make. And I think what you do, in my opinion, is you reward the guys that have done, taken tough fights and have sought out tough fights and have been active and have been there for you. And look at Diego has done this year. I mean, Diego's been incredible. He's, the UFC 303 with him taking Dan Ige on just a couple hours notice is incredible. But he has had a fantastic year. He's right at the top of the division. His fight at Noche UFC was incredible. So I think, I agree with you, Brandon. I think that he deserves that. Having said that, Dana pointed out that, hey, Volk took the fight against Islam, on what was it, 11 days notice. He was 170 something pounds, hadn't been training, moving up a division to fight a rematch against a pound for pound great fighter. You got to give him a lot of credit, right? So, that was interesting. So, I tend to think that that is, I understand why UFC is doing it, but I still think Diego should be the one to get that. Dana should get Hamzat the title fight in Sydney since he can go to Australia. If you saw my interview with him the other day, which I might mention, Donald Trump, I was shocked, retweeted my short or my Instagram reel the other day. At the end. So I think that's a funny story. So I want to share it with you guys. So this goofy camera that I got, Sony ZV-E10, I got the other day. And my first time using it was against Hamzat. So the interview I have scheduled for 6 a.m. Pacific time, my time. I'm in Las Vegas. So I wake up early. I get out to my computer at 5:30. I turn the camera on. I actually, everything was working. I have my mic working the way I want it. The camera was looking. The picture was phenomenal. I was really excited. I did a test video myself. Recorded myself. I wanted to be ready for Hamzat because I knew this was he was only doing a handful of interviews, and I really wanted to get a good interview with him. And I had like 20 minutes, so I was planning a really good interview. We're 4 minutes in, and Hamzat was great. Before we went on the air, he saw me. Hey, what's up? And we have a good relationship. He was happy to see me, so I knew. I said, "Boy, this is going to be great." We're like 4 minutes into the interview, and boom, my picture goes out. He's still on. I didn't know what the hell happened, but what it was my camera overheated. I had turned it on like at 5:30. The interview was supposed to be at 6. Of course, Hamzat was late. It starts at 6:20. And I'm learning a lot of this stuff as I go, as I'm trying to go into video stuff. My camera overheated, and the setting was set to turn off when the camera gets hot, to turn it off in 1 minute. So it turned off on me, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I lose the thing. So my screen is black, and I'm trying to decide what to do. And I didn't want the UFC PR person pulling Hamzat away when they saw my screen black. So I threw a couple questions at him, and then I said, "Okay, Hamzat." And I'm thinking at this point, I'm not going to use this video. And then I just said out of the top of my head, "Oh, can he get into the US? Because I know if he wants to fight for the title, he can't just fight in the Middle East all the time." So I said, "Hamzat, can you travel to the rest of the world, or can you fight in the US?" And then he said, "If Donald Trump wins the fight," as he called it, said, "If Donald Trump wins the fight, no problem, I'll fight in the UFC." So I made a YouTube short on it. I posted that on Instagram. And then lo and behold, the other night, Donald Trump shares it in his story. And I got an incredible amount of views out of that. So that was pretty funny. So that was a little bit nutty. Let's see. Peter, please talk about the robbery in the first fight. I mentioned that, Peter, right off the bat. I thought that Carlos Iole deserved to win that fight. I thought he was landing the better shots, the harder shots. He was doing the damage in the fight. Sometimes people take damage as marks, like your face swelling or your eyes swelling, that type of thing. And that's not what damage is. Damage is getting hurt, right? Like if you get knocked down, like when Topuria hit Max with that right hand before the knockout, and Max went staggering back, that is considered damage, right? He was hurt. Even if, let's say, Topuria didn't land a left hook that ended up finishing him, the damage occurred when he landed that big right hand. That is scored in the fight because power is scored in these fights. Some people think it's a little swelling on your face, and that's not fair to people because people with fairer complexions tend to swell up more than others, and some people cut more than others. But getting hurt and having significant moments in the fight, that's what and I thought all those significant moments in that fight went to Carlos Iole. You obviously saw Renat was struggling to walk on his leg. He had a lot of trouble there. So I just think that fight was wrong. That scoring was wrong. And you can make an argument that Renat won 2-1, but you cannot make an argument that he won 3-0. And I just really just didn't think that would be something else. Let's see. Ilya versus Volk in Spain, DDP versus Hamzat in South Africa. I think if the UFC had their way, that's how they would want it to go. They've been having, in Spain, the issue is not getting an arena. It's all the arenas are booked long in advance. So they're having trouble getting an arena to put a show in for Ilya, like, on the time schedule they would want to have him fight. In South Africa, the problem is they don't have indoor arenas that are suitable for UFC. So there's some outdoor arenas, but I know the Minister of Sport from South Africa was in Abu Dhabi this weekend. He was going to meet with some of the UFC people. So they might be able to get that fixed so that they can go ahead and put a fight down there. I know that would be the way that the UFC would like to see it go. I'm not sure that is the way it is going to go. Chris Barnett is the man. Yeah, Chris is a really good guy, Garrett. I mean, he really is. And I think he's a talented fighter. One of the problems when you're so big like he is, he's 5'9" and he's 260 after he cuts weight, 265 after he cuts weight. what does he weigh before that? You put a lot of stress on your joints. And I think that has something to do with why you see him get hurt a lot, right? He's had leg injuries, his Achilles today was a hamstring. The guy is a good fighter. He's not a championship level fighter, but he's a good fighter. And I feel really bad for him. So, that's something. Why did we see so much hate toward Hamzat before the fight? I don't like to see hate for anybody unless there's a reason for it, and there's usually not a reason for it. These guys are pretty good fighters, and they're pretty good people for the most part. There are some bad people in the sport, but most of the MMA fighters and most of the boxers that I have run into over the years have been great people. And you see little snippets of them, and you think they're bad people, or you hear social media rumors and blah 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 and say they're bad people. And it's too bad. I will tell a story about Hamzat. I did an interview with him, and I used video. He was driving around after his opening 2 wins and before he fought Gerald Meerschaert, and actually a little bit after that fight too. He was fine. He was making a point to go out and find homeless people. And if there were some homeless people by a McDonald's near where he was at, so he took them inside and he bought them food. Other homeless people, he was pulling his car over and handing them money and giving it to them. And that's a guy that's not American. He doesn't have any, but he was trying to treat people the right way. I think, has he made mistakes? Has he said crazy things, in the heat of battle? Of course he has. But I think don't take it so seriously. And I think, to hate on people when you don't really know them, like, hey, I'm going to say this. A lot of these guys, like, I know them a little bit, and I know most of them better than most of you guys know them because I get to see them, but I don't know them, right? And so you have to reserve judgment and look at their action going forward, right? So, I think that's something, I would just say, think before you, hate on guys in the future. You may not like, a particular fighter or whatever, and that's fine. That's your right as a fan, right? Root for who you want and cheer, but don't hate on people and say bad things about them. So thanks for bringing that up. Garrett, I think Holloway needs to do 155. I couldn't agree with you more. I think Max, what does he have left to prove? I understand why he tried to do this. Interestingly enough, if you look at it, both of the guys that lost in the co-main event and the main event, they last held their championships in 2019. Rob Whittaker lost to Adesanya, I believe it was in October of 2019. Holloway lost his belt to Volkanovski in December of 2019. Max has done a lot in his career, and I think the way he looked at Justin Gaethje would tell you, he is a lightweight, and I think not that the weight had anything to do, he wasn't burned out, he wasn't, weight drained and nothing. He had a good training camp. He was fully healthy. I know when I interviewed him, a lot of you guys commented about how bad he looked. That's how Max always looks before the fight when he's cutting weight. He just always looks like death warmed over. But he himself admitted after the fight he was fine. I think he's just better off at lightweight, and there's new challenges there for him. So I think that that's something that he ought to do, right? So I think I will love to see him go there. Con Gaming, I think Ilya will beat everybody in the lightweight division. He could, right? I think he's a special talent. There's a few special talents that are out there. Undeniably, John Jones is a special talent. I think Islam Makhachev is a special talent. I think we're seeing Ilia Topuria is a special talent. When I was writing my betting story yesterday, I picked Max Holloway. I can't even speak now. And I initially wrote it, and I had picked Ilia. And then I started thinking, before I sent it, I started to think about it. I said, Ilya's beaten Volkanovski, and then the next best person he's beaten is Josh Emmett. And then you started looking at who Max Holloway's beaten. And I thought, Max's size and his range, could cause Ilya trouble. His takedown defense will cause Ilya some trouble. Max is hitting harder now. And so I kind of changed my mind, and I rewrote my betting story. And I said toward the end of that story, I said, Ilya could prove everybody wrong and just show that he's an A++ fighter in this fight, and we're going to all look bad and we're going to regret not picking him. But I'm going to go with Max Holloway in this. And I'll tell you what, in the first round, even though I thought Holloway won the first round, in that first round, Ilya was landing those hard shots, and I was like, oh boy, that was really something. So yeah, I mean, could he win? Beat everybody in the lightweight division? Maybe. I think that, it's a tough division, and you start going through all of those guys, and it gets to be a little bit much, but I think he is that good that he can do that. But I first, as I said before, I think it's fair to make him go ahead and have a couple of defenses at 145 before he moves up and goes there. Let's see. I think the money fight to make for McGregor's return is Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor for the BMF belt at 155 or 170. Do they put Conor in with somebody right now as good as Max? And then after this fight today, how long is Max going to need to be off, right? I don't know. So that is going to be interesting. We'll have to see how long Max needs to be off. Max likes to fight, and he's usually recovers fairly well, even from his tough fights, but he's never been knocked out before. And he took some big shots in that fight. So, I don't know from two standpoints. I don't know that McGregor is ready for somebody of that ilk after all this time off and all the physical toll his body has gone through. But I also don't know that Max will be ready for that, right? So that is a tough one. Umar is next. So in that case, the fight to make is Umar versus Merab. Merab says he wants to fight, but then he wants to fight in March. And of course, the reason he wants to fight in March is because Umar has come out and said he's not going to fight during Ramadan, and Ramadan starts February 28th. So if he fights in Ramadan, he's not eating, and then that hurts him in his job as he tries to fight. And when I had interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and you guys can find that interview if you haven't watched it already on my YouTube channel, he told me then that he said, if Merab won't fight me, I want to fight before Ramadan, so I am going to fight somebody else, and then I will fight whoever has the championship after I come back after Ramadan. So it looked like the UFC was trying to put a fight with Song Yadong together. Song is hurt, cannot fight, so that fight is not going to happen. And then now Merab was saying, he would maybe fight O'Malley. So who knows what's going on there? I think the best move is January for Merab versus Umar. I think that would be fair to both guys, and it would give a good main event for that show. But we will see, what goes on. So I disagree. I disagree. I agree with that. We'll see what happens. Neither Volk's chin nor Lopez's chin can withstand Toporia's fist. They have very little chance. We'll see. I think Volk has proven that, he's going to struggle with Ilya striking. He's going to have to make it a wrestling heavy game. But if you make it a wrestling heavy game, Ilya has great submissions. And then that becomes another problem. So that would be an issue for me. Hamzat's next fight should be for the belt. I'm still making up my mind on that one. But, I am not, I'm not against that. If they made that fight today, if Dana would have come out at the press conference and said, this is the fight, I wouldn't argue it. I would be thinking of it, that, in fact, when I wrote my column, and I hope you check KevinIole.com, please do that for me. And I wrote two columns, one on Hamzat and then one on Ilya and Hamzat. And I mentioned in there, I was going to say Hamzat should be for the title next, and then I thought, there are some things that could go there. So, I appreciate that. All righty, let's see what's going on here. What do we got next? Okay. At 205, Hamzat can easily submit Pereira. Pereira is a black belt. I don't think he is anywhere near the kind of grappler that Hamzat is, but I think that, certainly that is he would, that would be fun to see what goes on. Let's see, my man George. George, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Great content all week, culminating with a post-fight wrap-up. I appreciate that, brother, very much. Thank you for your support. George has a great podcast, and I also want to thank him for helping me with a lot of my technical issues that I have. George is awesome, so very good there. I'm just going to say this, by the way, if you start two things, if people start putting stupid comments in, I'm going to end the chat. I'm not going to put up with somebody putting vile comments in the chat. I'm going to block you. And if you do that, so please don't do it, right? Because we'll just end the chat. If I start saying that, which I just saw one, I'm going to block you, and I'm also going to end the chat early. So you're going to screw it for everybody else. So please don't do that. Hello, Kevin. I follow you, and I felt you overlooked Topuria a little bit, like he was some dude who got lucky against Volk and was just yapping. No, if you saw my interview with him, you saw the respect I gave him, and thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that very much. But what I was saying was, what my argument was there was that he just had not had the kind of experience that Max Holloway had at the very top level. Like, his best opponent was Josh Emmett. And I like Josh Emmett, and Josh Emmett is a very tough guy, but he is not at that level that Max Holloway is at, that Volkanovski is at, that, that Ilya quite obviously is at. And that is what I was talking about. And that's why I said what I said there. So that was that's what I was talking about. So let's see, where are we going? I want to just make sure I don't miss anybody that was here. Let's see. Fans want to see a new contender. Morris Volk much deserves a rematch. I understand that, right? I do understand that, and as I said, I thought Diego deserves the fight. Volk has lost those fights, those two fights to Islam, the fight to Ilya. I think maybe he needs to get a win, in my opinion. But he is still a legendary fighter in this division. And if you take his two losses, they were up against the pound for pound number one guy in that guy's division. He was moving up. So I understand why they're doing it, but I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. Let's see. Dominic, I don't think Volk will ever beat Ilya. He just has his number. I think that is, that may be very well be true. Volk may be at a point in his career where, the matchups for him at the top level are not right there. My man, MMA Junkie George, my good friend George Garcia, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for that. You are a good man. You paved the way for a lot of us who are doing this, George, and you and your brother goes. Let me know when you have your recap. I guess you're going to do something on Sunday night, but always appreciate you and your friendship very much. I appreciate you, brother. Let's see. Why didn't I make it to Abu Dhabi? Money. So, I have to pay for myself to travel, and I am running my own business as my own person. And, it's tough. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. It is not easy to sit here and, you're not making a ton of money doing this. I'm trying to grow it, and I think I have a lot of good things happening, and I think this time in 2025 I'm going to be a lot better than I am right now. But for me to go to Abu Dhabi was going to be really, really, really expensive, and that's basically why. I don't think too many people really care about that. But to answer your question, that's why I did that. You are the greatest Anglo journalist. I love you from Spain. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. What is? Thank you. The only journalist that'll press Dana and call him out on his BS. Thank you very much. Let's see. Happy to be here, ready to hear some knowledge. I appreciate it, Scrapton. Thank you very much. I appreciate you joining me and following my channel. Hope everybody also will follow KevinIole.com. Check out my stuff there. I have a ton of stuff that will be up. Let's see. Would you ever try to get that story that Dana mentioned today at the press conference that happened between him and Ngannou? Um, you talking about when he said the other day after the Power Slap press conference that about the money and the whole story of why Francis didn't take the fight. If I could get that on the record and confirm the facts, of course I would. I think that's what you're referring to. If not, put it in the comments and I'll get to it and but yes, I mean, if there is a story, I don't care what it is. If there is a story that I can substantiate with facts and prove that it's accurate, I will report it. If it's if it's a news story, something that I cover. So yes, I will do that. Better wait for the DDP Hamzat fight. Both fighters are aggressive. I don't want to see DDP wastefully bleed from Strickland defensive elbow and feminine jab. Strickland won the championship. That was a very close fight against Strickus. Could go, that fight could have gone either way. And then Strickland beats Paulo Costa. I mean, you can't say that he doesn't deserve a title shot. I understand what you're saying. And I understand that, hey, you want to see Hamzat, who had a great performance, and God bless Hamzat, right? He stepped up his game and he made the UFC think. But it's not fair to Strickland too, because he's done what he's had to do. So we'll see what they decide to do. Thoughts on Rebecca getting the upset win as a 3-1 dog? Should have been a unanimous decision. I mean, I thought Rebecca won the fight, right? So that means I thought it should have been a unanimous decision, right? I'm not sure how the hell the one judge gave Orban his name is tough for me to pronounce. I gave him the third round. I just didn't see that. I thought Rebecca was doing great there, and I thought that was an issue. David, doesn't South Africa have reliable electricity and infrastructure issues? Blackouts are reported to be frequent. That I'm not aware of, but I do know that there wasn't a good indoor arena, but they were working on putting a roof on an arena down there so that they could try to bring the UFC there. Their minister of sport traveled to Abu Dhabi, was talking to some UFC officials. He attended the Power Slap event the other day where all the UFC officials were there. So we'll see what comes to that. The UFC is not going to go to South Africa if they think there are electricity and infrastructure issues, right? So my understanding, I've never been to South Africa, but my understanding is that in Johannesburg, there's a lot, it's a modern city and there's a lot of good places to be there. So we will see what happens. Let's see. Do you think Ilya can knock out Volk in the rematch? I don't even think the fight should happen. Obviously, I think he can knock him out because he did it once. If he did it once, I think he can do it again. Ilya Taporia makes UFC feel like Formula One. Yeah, he is very quick, Matua. I mean, he is very quick and very fast. And boy, I think that is, he's going to be trouble for a lot of guys because he's got power, he's got quickness, he's got wrestling, he's got submissions. That is going to make him, he's got good timing too. A lot of times, like I've learned over the years, I always love I always love quick guys, right? Have fast hands, but then you realize over the years, timing can deal with that, sometimes very well. But Ilya has great timing. He has great quick hands. He's just a quick, athletic guy. He's got good takedowns and he's got all the submissions. So boy, oh boy, oh boy, I'll tell you what, he is really something. What do I think they do with Diego since he was the backup? Well, I think, they could have Diego fight sometime early next year, depending on what matchups are out there for him, right? I think there's plenty of matchups for him that they could do. So I don't think it's going to be that bad, right? I think Diego could come out and do that. So, I think he didn't have to fight, so he had to make the weight, so he needs some time off, but he didn't have to fight. So anyways, let's see here. Unbelievable. I never thought I would see Max get stopped. Yeah, I agree with you, Uncanny Suit. I never did either. That is something. The thumbnail photo was so commanding. I just had to click on this. Well, good. My man Nestor, who made it for me, he is going to be happy. So I will tell Nestor that. Thank you very much. Andre the Giant could make featherweight in Abu Ghraib. Okay, now I disagree with that one. Max put himself in the position to get knocked out as far as his style goes. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, but how is Max going to win that fight? I think what he had to do was try to fight a calculated game. He was getting his leg pieced up, right? That was another problem. But I think, he had to try to, give Ilya angles, move in and out. I thought he could have used his jab a little bit more than he did. So that was something. Let's see. Hamzat's approach lends itself to longevity. He's had multiple fights where he doesn't accrue damage. Yeah, no. I mean, when you look at his fights, I mean, today Whitaker landed 2 shots, right? He was 2 of 2, but he landed 2 punches. And I'm sure they were just taps, when they were on the ground. And you look at a lot of those fights that, his Kevin Holland fight, he did not, the only fight that I can remember off the top of my head that he took a lot of damage would have been the fight against Gilbert Burns. And he, there was some issues going on with him before that fight. So I don't think there. Ilya versus Gamrot. Well, I don't think Gamrot's going to get that fight coming off Dan Hooker. Let's see. Until Hamzat can fight in America, it doesn't make sense to give him a title shot. Well, they have plenty of foreign shows, so we will see. Where that goes. So Kevin Iole is a former pro boxer. Okay. Was Dana sitting next to Kadyrov like he sits next to Trump? I don't know. I thought he was sitting next to Hunter Campbell, but I don't know. Was he sitting next to Kadyrov? I did not see. Harold, great guys. Thank you. Let's see. What do we got here? Conor McGregor's next fight. Oh my God, you guys are crazy. All right. Thoughts on Gamrot dropping 4 spots in the ranking for losing a split decision, but Ortega gets nominated. You were obviously a Gamrot fan, crazy Pato. I don't vote in those rankings, and I don't do divisional rankings, so I just do pound for pound. I would have to sit there and look at it. So for me to comment off the top of my head, Dan Hooker had to move up though, right? Dan Hooker was ranked way below him, and I don't think you take, you have to just look at the circumstance where it is. So I think in that division, Dan Hooker needed to move up and Gamrot had to drop a little bit, and I think that's how it happened. I'm not going to defend the UFC rankings because certainly they are crazy. I don't agree with everything that Dana was saying about the rankings at that thing the other day, but there are some problems with the rankings. So let's see. Umar has a beautiful style. I agree with that. Umar needs to be next. I agree with that. I would love to see that. What is this? What do we got here? I was introduced to your channel by way of your appearance on MMA Joey's channel. You do great work. Thank you, Benji. I appreciate it. Thank you, Joey. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let's see. Who has been more protected, Chara, Bullet, or Bo Nickel? I'm not sure. I would say I think either one has been protected, right? I think both guys, have fought appropriate, experience appropriate opponents, and we'll see. So Chara Bullet called out Adesanya today. I don't think we're going to get that fight, but that would be a hell of a fight if they did make that. Interesting. I've never seen a chin break like that. Yeah, if you're talking about Max, Max has had that great chin, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, God bless Max, But when you're in there against a guy who's heavy-handed and you have taken punishment all fight and all throughout your career, that adds up after a while, right? And I think that's something that to think about with with Max. Max likes to say he has great boxing, and he has great offensive boxing, but Max's defensive boxing, sometimes he can get hit. And when you're facing a guy like Ilya, where you see Ilya, and I think it's really it's clear now. If there was any doubts about Ilya's power, it's legit. Knocking Volkanovski out the way he did, knocking Max out the way he did, Ilya's power is legit. And I think you add that all in with Max and what went on, and I think we see why we're at where we are there. So what do we got here? Bo Nickel will fight a jobber once a year. I disagree with that. He's fighting Paul Craig. I think again an appropriate opponent for him at that level. So flute whistle. Nobody wants to watch Ankalaev get a title shot. Why do you say that? I mean, I see a lot of people on my social media, they were complaining that Ankalaev didn't get the fight before Khalil Roundtree, right? And he deserved it based on the rankings. Now we saw the fight, UFC is in the business of putting on entertaining shows, and we saw the fight, and the fight was a fun, entertaining fight. So, you can't question them after we saw what happened. But and Ankalaev didn't do anything today that would make you think he does, he's going to just go in there and wrestle and hold Alex. Now maybe he will do that, but he stood there against a very good kickboxer in Alexander Rakic today, stood right in front of him, didn't move, and he struck with him. I wasn't, as I said at the very top of this flute whistle, I wasn't overly taken by his performance in the fight, right? But but I think he did come to fight. Do I think Volk can reclaim the title? I love Volk, right? Volk has treated me really, really well. Gives me interviews whenever I ask. He's a good guy. He fights everybody. He's been one of the best fighters in the year. But, as long as Ilya is the champion, I honestly don't think he can do that. I mean, I don't want to undersell Alexander, but what I'm seeing from Ilya, I think Ilya is a special, special fighter, and he is really moving up. Let me just mention here, I'll keep going as long as there are questions. We've been like 45 minutes, but I'll keep going here. If you guys are cool, I'll keep going as long as I got some. By the way, I am a Gold Peak iced tea guy, and they were out of it at the supermarket, so I got this Pure Leaf stuff. Not nearly as good as Gold Peak. I'm really disappointed that at my supermarket here that they didn't have any Gold Peak iced tea. What the hell's wrong with you guys? Let's see, where are we at here? If you talk Kevin's crap, yes. If you talk crap in my chat, they're going in a room with John Jones, and we know who's walking out, and we may put John Jones's dogs in there with you. So you're going to be in for something, right? So thank you, Don Vito, for pointing that out. Let's see. Biggest Dickest, loving my work. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see what else we got here. Do you think Diego Lopez is ready for Ilia Topuria? He looked like he was drooling cage side for the fight. I think he's as ready as he's going to be, right? I think in that fight, you'll see Ilia wrestle him a little bit more. We saw Diego got taken down before in his fights, and I think, you'll see Ilia wrestle him a little bit more, but I certainly think that he's ready for the fight. Like, he is as ready. After beating Brian Ortega, Dan Ige, who else did he beat? I mean, Sadiq Youssef in that crazy knockout. The way he's been fighting, I mean, if you can't say he's ready, he's never going to be ready, right? So here's another Diego fan. Zach says Diego deserves it, and I want to see if he can bring his grappling to the table. And that's the thing. I just mentioned that I thought Ilia would try to take him down. Diego's got that range, right? Long and everything, kind of like Max, and he struck with Max. But I think, that it would make sense to me to try to get him down, because Ilia's submissions are really, really elite. And so, we shall see here. Let's see what else do we got on. People were talking about a featherweight interim title fight. Seems to be a little bit crazy. I mean, why would you talk about an interim title fight? Like, Ilya just defended the championship. Why? Where's the argument that he doesn't deserve the title, right? And keep fighting for the title. There's no. It's not like he's going to be out 9 months or something. He will be back, and so we'll see. I mean, I would not be shocked if he fought it in Australia. We shall see, but. I don't understand why you would say that, right? I mean, I just no way to an interim featherweight title, absolutely no way, and it would hold no value. Who would have any value? It just makes no sense. So I'm not sure anybody that's saying that, they're crazy. In my opinion, no one beats Topuria at featherweight. I don't disagree with that, right? So let's see. This was the easiest money of my life. Ilya's Volk 2.0 with deadly power, better wrestling and submissions. This was always going to happen. You might have heard me talk about my bets before in my betting column that I wrote yesterday. I wish I had stayed with what I had originally written in that. But you got to take what you see. Only peasants and casuals won't appreciate Ankalaev's fighting styles. He will sleep your family sofa. I think that Ankalaev, is not the most exciting fighter in the world, but he's effective. He's got a lot of knockouts. He's got a lot of wins. I think he deserves it. We shall see. Let's see. What's this one? You're the best journalist interview in the UFC. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, you guys are nice, man alive. I remember used to getting on these chats and I used to get ripped. So it's very nice for that. Let's see. Wish Dana would toss you 200. Yes, I do too. Dana, I agree with Zach G. And I'm going to just say this. If Dana tosses me 250 G, 10% of that's going to Zach G, right? So Zach, if he does, maybe you want to pressure him, 10% is going to you. So just remember that. 10 grand to get to Abu Dhabi and hotel. Thoughts on Rebecca? I think Rebecca's a good fighter, like good grappler. He showed a lot of toughness today. Really impressive. I was impressed with him. He came back from a loss. So I was impressed by Rebecca, and I want to see him fight again. He showed a lot of balls in that fight today, right? I mean, there was times he could have quit. So God bless him. He did not quit. Oral by same thing. His eye was crazy. And it turns out he didn't even break the bone, Oral by, and he fought. So let's see. You're killing it, brother. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. M, is it just me or does the UFC lack any real standout superstars with real charisma like they did back in the day when fighters like GSP fought? M, I wrote today that I thought Chimaev and Topuria, you can read it on KevinIole.com, hint. I'm trying to get you guys to read my stuff on my site. Even if you don't read it, just go there and click it. I would appreciate that. But I wrote on my in my post-fight column today that I thought that both Ilya and Khamzat became really true stars today, right, with the way they fought. So, I disagree with that. Like, I know there have been some people who have put that forward, right? But I disagree with it. I mean, they don't have a Conor McGregor star. But I'm going to say this: I think in the era that we're in now, with where everything is and with the theft of signal, we're not going to have. I would not be surprised. Not that I'm predicting this. So we'll go into another thing very briefly. I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent, but I'm going to go down a little rabbit hole for a quick second. The UFC's deal with ESPN is up at the end of this year, and they're negotiating new contracts. I personally think, and I don't have any inside information at this point, it's just my opinion. I think, number one, they're going to break the contract up. In the past, they've always had one partner that they did their deals with. They had Spike, and then they had Fox and ESPN. I think you're going to see them now break it up. I believe Netflix will be involved. Dana has talked a lot about Netflix getting into live sports. It's worldwide. Dana loves the fact that you don't have to negotiate with Netflix USA and Netflix Japan, and that you get a deal with them, and it's a worldwide thing. I would not be surprised also if Amazon gets involved, right? And then I do think they're going to stay with ESPN. So then the second thing that again, I don't know anything, so I don't want anybody going quoting me saying I said this as fact. It's my opinion, and it's an educated guess right now as we sit here at 4:24 p.m. on October 26, 2024, is that I think they may do away with pay-per-views, and then instead of having pay-per-views, everything will be on free over the air. So that may be something that I think is that happens, and so then the show is going to draw bigger numbers, right? As opposed to having one individual fighter like Conor bring in the numbers. But I do think they have stars, and I will disagree with you. And they have a lot of entertaining fighters, and they're just missing. And it's cyclical when you see this in every sport. Like if you go into boxing, and we can go backwards in boxing, right? So who is the big star right now? Canelo Alvarez, is he the biggest pay-per-view star in boxing right now? If we back up, you had Manny Pacquiao. You had Floyd Mayweather. You had Oscar De La Hoya. You had Mike Tyson, right? There's always been, one guy, but there are gaps where, Mike Tyson goes out and Oscar hasn't firmly established himself, and it takes a while. I think the UFC has a lot of talented fighters and a lot of good, fun, entertaining fighters. And I think like today we saw Topuria and Chimaev, I think, take that next step up to star level. So I disagree with you on that one. So we'll see. Let's see. Illuminate MMA. One day I'm going to become famous and continue to give the praise. Okay, well, I would appreciate that. And hey, listen, if you help convince Dana, Zach said he wants Dana to drop me $250K like he did to the Nelk boys, and I promised Zach if I got that, I would give Zach 10%. I'll give you 5% if you second that and help him get it. So there you go. So I've already given away 15% of the $250K that I don't have, but I appreciate that. Thank you guys very much. Let's see. As much as I like Strickland, he didn't even defend the title. I'd rather see Chimaev get the shot. That's a personal opinion. He did defend the title. He didn't successfully defend the title, but he did put the title up against Dricus there. Let's see. Hamzat dominated Rob. No one has done this to Rob. Adesanya knocked him out. Strickland beat number 8 Costa, who was inconsistent in jab for 25 minutes. No one other than the Strickland fans wanted to see him get the shot over Hamzat. I would probably believe everything you just said there, Don Vito. But having said that, is it fair to promise somebody? So, if you're Sean Strickland and Dana White says Sean Strickland is getting the next title shot, and I even asked him at the final Contender Series fight a little less than 2 weeks ago, it'll be 2 weeks on Tuesday. I asked him, I said, is Strickland still going to get the next middleweight title shot? And he said yes. So now, obviously, it's professional sports and things can change, but Strickland hasn't really done anything to lose that shot that he was promised. So, we'll see what happens, but sometimes it's there. Let's see. Diego Lopez versus Yair would be a fucking really fun fight to see. I would love to see that fight. Big fan of Yair's. He's a little bit inconsistent, and I wish he fought more often. But I like Yair a lot, and I think a fight with him and Diego would be a lot of fun. Man alive, I'm loving this today. Everybody giving me some love. Thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate you, brother. Lopez doesn't need to fight again. If I were him, I'd wait for the belt. That is no way in the UFC to win Dana's heart, right? Dana does not like guys that wait for the title. And you have to, he's the one giving the title shots out. You got to play his game if you want to fight for his title. So, And I don't think Diego's that kind of guy either, right? I think Diego's the kind of guy that's going to want to fight. So if he doesn't get it, I think what might not be a bad thing to do. Somebody had asked a question earlier, how worn out is Diego going to be? Ilya fought tonight. If Ilya defends against Volk in Sydney on February, why not put Diego on that card against another top contender? And if Diego wins that fight, then put him in against the winner of Ilya versus Volk. So I think that that is something going there. Lopez is a very powerful man. He has the equalizer for Ilya. Max is powerful too, but I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree. Thank you, Daz. I appreciate that. Let's see. Was this main event not an obvious result? Were people hoping more than they were, knowing nothing in the skill set said Max could win? I explained my answer to this before, why I wrote and I picked Max to win the fight. So I made 3 picks on the main event, which I was 3-0 on the prelim, before the main event, and then I went 0-3 on the main event. I had Max to win at plus 205. I had the fight to go the distance at, what was that? I forget what that number was. And then I had Ilya to win Max to, no, not, I can't even get it right. Then I had the fight to end in a decision, whether either guy, at plus 120. I thought it was, Max doesn't get knocked out. So I thought, okay, Max isn't going to get finished. The fight is going to go by the distance. So there's my, my bet on fight by decision. Then when I sat there and I said, I think the fight's going to go over, same thing. I thought it was going to be a decision. I betting the fight to go over 4.5 rounds. And then I looked at, so I said Max has fought all these A and A plus fighters. Ilya had fought one A or A plus fighter in Volkanovski, and that experience level and that was what I had originally written my column picking Ilya to win. And then I said, he hasn't proven himself. And look at all these people that Max Holloway has fought. And then I says, Max has that length and Max has that jab and he's got the movement and he's hard to take down. And so as I started to think about that, and I thought, there is a very, the reason to bet on Max. But I said in the story, and you can go read it, it's still on there, and I tweeted it out today recently, right before the main event. So you can check that out if you want. You'll see down toward the bottom, I said, Ilya's could very easily prove us all wrong and make us look like idiots for betting against him. And of course, that's exactly what he did. Let's see. Roundtree versus Ankalaev next year. I wouldn't be against that, but if you do Roundtree versus Ankalaev, then what do you do with Alex Pereira, right? So I just don't, I'm not sure what's going on. Let's see. Aubrey lost a split decision. Oh, my man George was at an amateur boxing fight. And I'm sorry to hear that Aubrey lost. So I was rooting for Aubrey. Let's see. Bobby Knuckles got his jaw crushed. Yeah, that was incredible. And, it was funny. DC said right before on the broadcast, he was talking about how strong Khamzat is. And there was evidence of it. I mean, he just got his jaw squished, right? So it was incredible, right? I mean, it was really, really amazing. Let's see here. What is this? Would you book Chimaev instead of Strickland for the middleweight title? I think Chimaev deserves the title fight, but Strickland was promised a title fight. And that's to me where it is, it's difficult, right? So that's, to me, that's where, it becomes like, I think Chimaev deserves the title fight after what he's done today and what he's done in his career. But certainly, they promise it to Strickland. It's pro sports, so, we shall see. I'm trying to get to some different questions here. People who haven't had any here. Let's see. Did I have a look at Fight Mind's UFC rankings launched this week? I have not seen that yet, but I will make a point to look it up. So I'll see what I can get that. Is Movsar screwed? He's going to fight Aljo. So I don't think he's screwed. And then, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. Um, you've covered boxing for decades. How good is Ilya's boxing? I think he has fantastic boxing right now. I always try to be careful with people when I say about MMA boxing because, as you know, Wire, everybody has to defend all these different things in MMA that you don't have to do in boxing, right? So that your stance is different, the way you throw your punch, everything is different, right? So it's not pure boxing in the common sense of what boxing is. But I mean, when you look at the way Ilya puts his shots together, the way he sets things up, the way he moves, the angles he creates, I just really, really, really love it. Right. So, I mean, God bless him for that. So let's see here, Jimmy. Ilya is dangerous because his grappling is top notch and he's got lethal hands. 100%. I mean, that is the whole thing. What do we got going here? The only interesting match for Ilya is Volk with a different spin on his camp. He's the only fighter that can beat him at 145 just by fight IQ and game planning accordingly. I'll tell you what, I don't know that Volk can deal with that quickness that Ilya has, right? The first round, I was at ringside for UFC 298, and now I've seen a lot of fights. That was, 8 months ago. But my memory was that Ilya was quicker, and Volk did okay in the first round. But I'm thinking, boy, Ilya's quick in there, and that's going to be what's going to happen. So, that's so I don't know. The answer to that question is I am not sure about that. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Thank you for joining. What is this? I'm reading chats like an old guy, dude. I am an old guy, but I'm answering people's questions. I talked for 20 minutes at the beginning of this and gave my opinion, and now I'm answering people's questions, and I think that's what people want. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, Kevin and Zach get that payday. Come on, guys! Let's get my payday. I want that 250K. So, Artem, much respect to your work. Thank you very much, Artem. I appreciate that. Mike, Hamzat gave Whitaker a one-way ticket to retirement. He very well may have, right? Rob has had a great career. That's going to be a pretty significant injury to come off of. Probably, not going to get another title fight based on, losing to Dricus, losing to Izzy, now losing to Hamzat. So, we shall see. Oh, we got an NBA question. NBA comes to town. Is it because the NBA expanded, or does Las Vegas get a relocated franchise? Not going to spend a lot of time on this one, George, but I believe that Adam Silver said that they would expand to come to Las Vegas. There is going to be a 25,000 seat, $3 billion arena built in Las Vegas. Although now they're talking about moving the site. So they had purchased land down by the Silverton. Now they're talking about moving it, but it's privately funded too. So that would tell you it's going to get built. Anyways, let's get back to MMA here. Always enjoy your takes and columns. I appreciate that very much. So we will see. Let's see. Did Hamzat leave 0 down for next versus Dricus? I don't think so, Jimmy, as I mentioned a number of times here, because of Strickland. But I think Strickland, the fact that Dana got up out of his seat and went over and talked to Hamzat as Hamzat was walking back to the dressing room, that would tell me that he said something significant to Hamzat and that he has plans for him going forward. So, we shall see how that plays out. But, let's go up here. What do we got? I'm the only journalist who could go balls with Dana. Okay. I hope they stay with ESPN. I think they will stay somewhat with ESPN, right? I think certainly, I just think they're going to add to what they do. So I think ESPN's not going to have the whole package, in my opinion, going forward. So that's what's going on there. Have I ever met Ari Emanuel, and how is he personally? I've interviewed him a couple times, met him in person one time. Very nice to me, but he's a really, 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 really tough business person. Really tough business person, and he knows what he's doing. So, anyways, I'm seeing a lot of the questions are kind of getting repeated, so I'm going to kind of go through these quickly. Thank you, Ernesto, for that. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for joining me. Let's see here. Blah blah blah. What else do we have? We're getting down to the end. There's that pot stirring grin. Do you think they even trust Thompson enough to be reliable to give him a title shot now? That's a good question. I mean, certainly Hamzat has not, he missed weight badly at UFC 279. He fell out of the Whitaker fight that was supposed to be in the summer. He's had health issues. Now, Hamzat's manager said before the fight that Hamzat had the best camp that he's ever had and was in the best frame of mind that he's ever had. He changed a lot of people on his team, and he changed the way he trained. He has a nutritionist in camp. He has a doctor with him full-time in camp. And maybe, that's the difference. But it is a good point, Larry, that, certainly they may want to say, okay, hey, we'll put Hamzat, let's see him come make weight one more time before we get to it. So let's see. Okay, here. I'm just trying to skip the ones that we have already gotten to. So let's see. Here's one about the gloves. What is this? Have you asked Dana for his thoughts on the KO rate dropping 30% since the new gloves were announced? I have never asked him that, and I had not heard that stat. But I heard somebody ask him at the Power Slap press conference Thursday night, and he answered that, and he said he thought it was BS and that it was too small of a sample size, and that there was some brutal knockouts. And I guess when you look at it today, look at some of the knockouts today. So were the gloves a factor today? Like, you can't have it both ways. I just think sometimes that's the way, fight, played out, right? So let's see here. We got all these Hamzat questions. All these Hamzat questions are saying to me, guys, that Hamzat, somebody who before said UFC doesn't have stars. Hamzat. I mean, that's telling me that people think Hamzat is a star. So, we'll see. Usman was fighting scared. I don't think he was fighting scared, but I'll say this. I talked to Usman. If you saw my preview on Hamzat, what day did I do that? Thursday, I guess. And I talked to Usman for that story. And I asked him, do you think Hamzat is for real? And he said he did. Usman hadn't been training in a while. He got into camp late. And so kind of, wasn't confident in his cardio to push. In fact, they offered him a 5-round fight, and he said he would prefer a 3-round fight. So I don't think he was afraid. And there's that old saying that you hear fight people say, getting tired makes cowards of everybody, right? Fatigue makes cowards of us all. And I think that that's kind of what was in the back of Usman's mind in that fight, that he knew, his cardio wasn't what you would need going up against somebody like Hamzat. But what did you see from Hamzat, right? You saw Hamzat, didn't blow him out like he blew out Robert Whitaker, like he blew out some other guys. So I think it told you that he fought, very, very well there. So anyways, let's see, where else are we going? Let's see. Do you know who would be cool to interview? Joe Sylvan. If you ever got to interview him, could you ask him what made him book Tony versus Habib for the first time? I'll reach out to Joe and see if he wants to do an interview. I think he's been pretty happy in retirement. He's rich now, and I don't think he's looking to do interviews or anything. But so we will see what's going on. Let's see. 100%. You have to interview Islam and Ilya together. I would love to interview those two guys together. I was supposed to talk to Islam Ray about 10 days ago or so, and something canceled on his end. I'm not 100% sure what it was, but his manager, Ali Abdelaziz, told me that they would get that rescheduled soon. So I'm hoping maybe this week, but I don't know. But if I could get Islam and Ilya on together and have like a 3-on-1 interview, that would be awesome. I would love to do that, and I think that would be a lot of fun, and I would definitely be down for that. So anyways, I'm going to end this because we are at an hour and 15 minutes, and I think that I've gotten all the questions on here. You know, Usman is a huge fighter. He survived and fought, absolute beast on 10 days notice. I agree with that. I appreciate everybody. If you don't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please check out keviniole.com. And if you want to follow me on social media, I am Kevin I, Kevini on X, and I'm Kevin Iole, my name, on Instagram and on Facebook. So if you check me out there, I would appreciate it. Appreciate all the questions, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the fights. I hope you enjoyed the chat. I got some interviews lined up coming this week for sure. Yeah, Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi. Probably, I am going to be talking to John Jones. Don't have the time on that yet, but I do have an agreement with John Jones, so I'll have an interview with John Jones for you. And I'm assuming I will have Stipe. I haven't got that set up yet, but I should have Stipe as well. Looking to mix in some boxing interviews too. So anyways, guys, I appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon. Be well.